Welcome and thank you for joining this presentation. I'm Chris Whitaker and I'm with Teleris. We're a international technology solution broker, and I specialize in the Internet of Things, frankly, most things wireless. And today, I just kind of want to do an overview, kind of this Internet of Things 101. Now, what's the basics, why, what, and how? So to do that, let's just start off with why IoT. It's a huge revenue opportunity, obviously, for the industry, whether you're a seller or a buyer, end user, because by deploying proper technology, there's an ROI, there's savings, and of course, if you're in the technology consulting or advising business, it's another opportunity to add value and of course make a living, right? Which is nothing wrong with that. So depending which report you look at, and if you were to research this, there's a lot of different numbers out there, but definitely I don't think anyone's arguing that over the next year we're seeing an increase over to nearly $500 billion, and over the next 10 years we're talking trillions of dollars in revenue opportunity. It's an emerging tech. I mean, it's this fun and exciting time to be in technology. We're solving problems that frankly for decades we just lived with. We didn't even know they were a problem until we discovered there's a better way to do something. And that's really the reason to kind of lean into this. If you're at this presentation, if you're at this event, clearly I believe you're of the like mind. You clearly have an interest in technology and where IoT, machine learning, and the fourth digital revolution we're going to talk about in a moment, where is it taking us? Another reason why IoT, I feel, is something worthy of your time to look at as a consultant or even a end user: increasing efficiency and effectiveness. I've learned to live by that. Every situation I look at, I ask myself, is this the most efficient and effective way to do it? That's what I love about IoT. Almost every case, the answer is going to be yes, when you properly deploy an Internet of Things solution. And we're going to go over some use cases in a moment to give you some ideas of what that is. But remember, that's the key. Going back to the first part of the revenue opportunity, if you're looking at becoming more efficient and effective as a business, well, that's just going to have a positive impact on the bottom line. So again, that's the goal, okay? And then adding more value to your customer experience, and let's not forget employee experience. The great resignation going on in some markets, most markets, and today's worker is expecting the right tools to do their job. They're expecting technology to be present and used properly. So that's the one of the many, but we'll stick with these four for now, reasons for IoT. So I mentioned it earlier, welcome to the fourth industrial revolution. And I'm sure many other presentations and other speakers may be touching on this, but this is, we're in a new era. And I know people that have been doing IoT machine to machine for some time say, Chris, it's not so new. And it's really not so new. But when I first heard about the fourth industrial revolution a couple of years ago, I immediately thought, well, what were the first three? And I just want to share them with you real quick. But the biggest reason I'm sharing them for you is look what the impact was for each of these three. So when the steam engine came around, that was life-changing. I mean, we actually had something besides muscle power, okay? And then we evolved into electricity. Just think of our lives without electricity. It would be dark. And then the computer age. The computer age ushered in the internet. And just think of the problems were solved by the age of the computer, and of course the internet. We'd have no IoT without this third revolution, right? So then it brings us to the fourth industrial revolution, the convergence of physical, digital, and biological, all coming together and solving problems. And this is really the first point where, before, in the third industrial revolution, computers were talking, talking to humans. We programmed them, we put software in them, they solve problems for us, they talk to humans. But now we have computers talking to computers. When machine to machine comes from, oftentimes that's what IoT is doing. It's some sensor talking to some server, displaying information on a computer. Yes, ultimately the end game, it gets to a human, or maybe it doesn't. There are some scenarios and some solutions where It is almost hands-free. It's just it's working on its own. It's solving problems. It's using AI, machine learning to solve problems in all sorts of business applications. We're going to talk about those here. Previous slide said, hey, just in the next year, we're looking at half a trillion, but you can see here over the next, up to 10 years or so, we're looking at 13 trillion according to Qualcomm here. And I love how we break down the different verticals here. So this is just in one slide of some verticals, and you can kind of see how the um, dollar amounts are broken down, by vertical. We're talking big numbers here. And, what I wish we could capture is the ROI and the benefit in dollars by deploying these types of solutions. Jared Newman's a technology journalist and has some good work out there. But one of his quotes, and just like that, any company that blissfully ignored the internet at the turn of the century, the ones that dismiss the Internet of Things, risk getting left behind. So the fact that you're here today, good news. I don't think you're going to get left behind because you're learning and you're keeping up with what's going on in technology. But that's there's something to be said about that. There are still a lot of people that think, this IoT thing, it's just a fad. It's not really all that. It's there's a lot of issues with it. It's complicated. And some of those are probably true, right? But that's why it's so important to partner with the right supplier and the right advisor or consultant to help deploy these things. We'll touch on that in a moment. When you do a 101 level presentation, you got to have a couple of definitions in here, right? So we'll start with this one. What defines IoT? And there's just some key words I want to hit on here. Applications, our devices, collecting data, our events, and they're generating insights, translating into actions implemented to help improve a business or a process. So ultimately, that's what we're talking about here. That's how you get to that better efficiency and effectiveness. And I have two pictures here of a walk-in freezer and then a refrigeration section in a hospital, and then two little snapshots from a smartphone. And I'm sure you've probably heard of refrigeration or temperature monitoring. This is just a real easy one to explain IoT, so I'm going to run with it. So forgive me if you've heard this 100 times, but temperature monitoring. Okay, for decades it was as simple as a clipboard on the wall and a thermometer inside the freezer or the refrigerator, and you just simply took the clipboard off the wall, you looked at the thermometer, and you wrote down the temperature. Easy enough. What can go wrong there? A couple of problems with that. Of course, you're only tracking the temperature. By a person, right? That person is being paid to do a job. And second, it's not notifying anybody if the temperature drops. It's all reactive and not proactive. So that's why, again, I love IoT. So now we have a sensor in the refrigerator or freezer, and it's telling us by the second what the temperature is. And we can say, hey, alert me if it goes above freezing or if it goes, above a certain temperature. Great. So now we get an alert. Temperature's rising. Okay. That might not be a problem, because maybe the door's open. Maybe they're restocking the freezer. Door's been open, it's been propped up for 10 minutes. Of course, the temperature is going to go up. So you can put a sensor on the door. Say, hey, temperature's going up, but the door's open. So, okay, so it's not a big problem. But, 30 minutes later, if the door's still open, now you got a problem because maybe someone propped it open and forgot to close it. And then if the door's shut, the sensor says door's shut, temperature's rising. Well, what happened then? There's a power outage, and this happens with school systems. You think about school systems are closed on the weekends, so there's really no one there to monitor the refrigerator and freezer, and or if the power is on. So maybe a bad storm comes through, knocks down the line, the power goes out to the school. They come in Monday morning, and the breakfast and lunch for the day is ruined because it's too warm in there. That's a problem. So you can have a sensor to say, hey, tell me if the power goes out. Okay, so now we got 3 sensors so far in this one application: temperature monitoring, doors open, and power. Now, doors closed, the power's on, and the temperature's rising. Well, there's a preventive maintenance sensor you could put on the actual HVAC system that can alert you going, hey, this system's about to fail. You need to send a technician out. So that's, at least 4. We could probably go on. You can have an emotion sensor that, hey, is someone in the freezer or refrigerator working? A lot of different ways you can see that, just in this one example, that IoT sensors can make it easy for an organization. I teach this. You can see the logo there. It's our Teleris Academy material. And Yes, we could debate and say there's a lot more reasons or pillars to IoT, but I just kind of want to hit and reiterate the four that I've kind of already touched on. This requires a larger business conversation. We're not talking about technology really, even though it is high tech and it's emerging tech, but to properly diagnose and determine where you want to use one of the hundreds and hundreds of different sensors and applications, first you need to have a business conversation. What areas of the business would you like to improve upon, have more insight in? Are there compliance issues you need to track? Look at your operational budget. What line item of your operational budget, again, would you like more insight into, and like to maybe decrease your expenses? How can we leverage technology? And it's all about determining the right outcome. At E&E, we talked about earlier, efficiency and effectiveness. That's the goal. Any business that can be more efficient and effective clearly is going to be making more money or saving more money or both. In solving the problem, putting that temperature sensor in the freezer, that's only half the equation. We haven't even really gotten into all the data analytics that are collected by sensors. So this is another reason yet of why you should deploy IoT either as an advisor or an end user. And the amount of data you can capture from all these sensors, it just goes on and on and on. In fact, there's just mountains and mountains of data being collected. And that can be a problem too if you don't have the proper analytics engine or even the graphical user interface, the GUI. And so having the right interface to capture and understand all that data is also so important. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. And of course, by doing all these things, you're going to have that positive ROI. I mean, that's most C-level, most business leaders. This is going to cost me how much, and why would I do it, and what's the payback? Again, going back to E&E, you're more efficient and effective. That's going to show up in the bottom line. And even that example with the refrigerator, if you're in a hospital and you have staff that's highly paid staff that's there to save lives, and it's part of their duty to check the temperature. If you're paying them either hourly or annually, and you average that out over the course of the year, it's thousands of dollars. But then you have a sensor that can do it for hundreds of dollars a year. Yeah, you can see that's like an instant ROI. Now that 2 or 3 minute exercise 4 or 5 times a shift, 7 days a week is gone. So you can average that out to now they've gotten an hour or two back a week. So that's how a lot of these ROI is really just calculated by, hey, here's the cost of doing it the painful way today. And by deploying a IoT solution, I've removed that pain and that cost. So there, is my ROI. And again, very simplistic. There are a lot of other calculations and calculators that can go a lot more detail, obviously. So I've mentioned E&E several times, and I just want to give you another shot of what that looks like. Removing the manual process and the human error, decreasing waste and cost. Looking at the outcomes, to the customer outcomes as well, improving the outcomes in general and maintenance processes, increasing output and safety, and of course, adding quality control and asset tracking. I mean, I've not had a conversation with a business owner that didn't want to accomplish, all of these. This is where the benefit comes in. How can you leverage technology to accomplish these goals in any business? ESG. ESG is really just more of a compliance standard. It's not, a law that I know of, but when financial institutions are evaluating the value of a business, these are 3 categories that they're looking at. The environmental, the social, and the governance. So I could tell you at least 2 of those we could tie back to how IoT can help them track this. From the environmental standpoint, how they utilizing their natural resources, how they're being conscious of saving water and energy, not wasting it. And of course, the governance, how are they running the business? How are they tracking these things? A lot of IoT sensors can help here as well. So we've talked about why IoT. We've talked about what is IoT from a definition standpoint and some of the benefits and whatnot. We looked at the 4 pillars. Now I just want to take you into what makes up an IoT solution. And I know some of my engineering friends out there might want to debate this further, but for simplicity, I love the power of 3. So we're going to go with 3 elements of an IoT solution: a device and power source. You got to have a device and it has to be powered by something, whether it be battery, solar, or terrestrial landline connection to some kind of power grid. Got to have connectivity. It's got to transfer this data somehow, right? And it's not always cellular, and it's not always terrestrial. There's a lot of other types of connectivity, from Bluetooth to LoRaWAN, Zigbee, and so forth. It goes on and on. We won't go into all those today. Then the data processing and analytics. Like I mentioned, these sensors that are connected to some type of network are sending a lot of data. And of course, some sensors may only send data once an hour, once a day, depending on what kind of sensor it is. But some sensors are sending data, by the minute, and it piles up. So it's so important to have that good portal, if you will, single pane of glass, to receive all this data and put it in some type of actionable format. And that's really the big picture there too. I've been on calls and talked to customers that had all this data and they didn't know what to do with it. They were what's the saying? Drowning in information but starved for knowledge. They just didn't know what to do with this data. Again, there are suppliers and vendors out there that can help you make sense of that and make it actionable and again, increase your efficiency and effectiveness. So devices, if you're new to this conversation and you're still trying to figure out what I'm talking about, just know, chances are at your home you possibly have IoT already. If you have a Ring doorbell, a Nest camera, smart TVs, smart appliances that are connected to the internet, and you have some type of cloud app on your phone that you could control them with, those are all IoT. If you've used Uber is an example of an IoT solution. You have a device, you have connectivity, and of course you have the analytics and the software and all the electronics and all the gizmos inside your smartphone really help power what Uber is. If it wasn't for IoT, there would be no Uber. So looking at this slide here, you can see just a handful of some real simple examples of devices and sensors. Oftentimes, these are small in size. They're not really big devices. Think about the size of a remote control to your TV or your smartphone, possibly. And they're sometimes as easy as just, magnetic or adhesive attached, or even maybe a zip tie connected to something. It just depends on what you're trying to do with the sensor. But there's a lot of different sensors, and I won't go into all of them because we just don't have time, because there's literally hundreds. I also just want to touch back on user interface. So we mentioned all the data that these sensors are collecting, whether it be for pipeline pressure or water tank levels or leakage or air quality sensors, occupancy, volume detection, pressure in a tank or something. So all these different analytics, all these different measurements that we're collecting, how do you make heads or tails of them? Well, that's why it's just so important to have the proper user interface. And I can tell you right now, if you're an end user, business owner, and you're considering it, just make sure this, if you're looking at getting multiple different types of IoT solutions, which is often the case, you only start off with one and you realize, gosh, there's a lot of other problems we can solve with technology, and you add a second, a third, and a fourth. It can be challenging if they all come with their own portals, and you have to log in what we call swivel chair between multiple portals to kind of figure out what's going on. That's not efficient. Might be effective, but it's not real efficient. So ask the questions. Hey, does have open APIs? What other data, what other information can we pull into this portal so we can just have one dashboard and see what's going on in our business? Nice technology architecture slide here for you. We've kind of hit on a lot of these already, but the point of showing this to you, other than just having another visual graphic of what we're talking about here, is look at the one constant. Look at the one column that is present at every level of this stack: security. Another topic we could go on and on about. Bottom line, though, as you're either advising and consulting with IoT, or you're an end user and you're looking at buying and trying to figure out how you can leverage the Internet of Things to make your business better, just know there's got to be a security conversation. If you look at so many of the cyber security hacks and threats that are out there, a lot of them find their way through a unsecured endpoint device, which is usually an IoT sensor. So a big point there: security matters. So we talked a lot about IoT, why, and things to think about and whatnot. I just want to hit on a few use cases. Again, just don't have the time to go into the hundreds and hundreds that are out there. So I just want to hit on some very high level ones and some verticals that that may help, trigger some thoughts for you. So healthcare, it uses a lot of technology, obviously, and it's increasing, by the quarter. uh, Remote patient monitoring became it was kind of growing in popularity even before COVID, but COVID really made it main stage, where procedure is you have a procedure in the hospital and then they send you home because they don't, it's probably you're going to recover faster, and there's less likely of more infections. But they still need to monitor your vitals. They need to know what's going on with you, and have it all documented. Okay, this is where IoT comes in. There's actually a lot of solutions there. Predictive maintenance of machines. There's so many machines in the hospital, and if it ain't on break, it could be life or death. And they're very expensive machines. So there are sensors that help monitor and track the maintenance of all these different devices. Asset tracking. There's some stats out there that say that nurses could spend an hour and a half of their shift, or more maybe, just looking for things. IV stands, wheelchairs, EKG machines, X-ray machines, mobile computers. I mean, there's everything's on wheels in a hospital. Not only are they looking for them, but yes, in some markets and larger hospitals, there's a lot of contractors coming and going, and some things just walk out the back door. They're stolen. So you hospitals are better off to track and know where these things are exactly, with the various different types of solutions, whether it be AI camera solutions or some type of Bluetooth beacons or RFID. I mean, it just depends on the budget, how big the place is, and what they're trying to accomplish. There's more than one way to do that. And obviously the refrigeration, freezer, temperature monitor that I've already hit on a few times. Transportation, I love this one. We hear a lot about the supply chain, and it's a real problem, right? So, again, if we can make the supply chain more efficient and effective, and give the transportation industry more, better information so they can make better decisions, that's worth doing. So that's what you're seeing here with fleet tracking, route optimization. Where are my trucks? Where are the trailers? Why are they sitting at this one spot so long? Maybe you should reroute them or check on the driver. I mean, there's just a lot of benefits that the telematics. I mean, it helps them with their insurance. From when accidents occur, there could be cameras, video footage that helps keep that logistics, long haul driver out of trouble. Going back into driver behavior, cameras facing inward as well. With AI, they can tell if they're on their phone, if they're smoking, if their head's getting drowsy because they're tired. All these things are making it safer, and insurance companies love it when a transportation company is doing all they can to be safe and not have any accidents. The cargo and asset tracking, it's not always a vehicle. So it could be a pallet, it could be a generator, it could be the heavy equipment. And the pallet's a true story. Just recently, was talking with a company. They made engine parts, and they shipped the engine parts on these large pallets that were metal pallets because these are heavy parts. And each pallet was several $1,000s. And they had thousands of these pallets because they had to ship out to a lot of different places around the country and even the world. And so they put these little sensors on there because they got tired of having to buy more pallets, and they would contact wherever they shipped it off, say, hey man, we're going to send out a truck to pick up the pallets. And they're like, oh, we don't have them, they're not here. And they're like, oh yes, they are, they're in the back corner of your storage lot, behind the warehouse type thing. So just an interesting little anecdotal story there. Then there's public transportation, whether it be buses or trains, Wi-Fi, occupancy, location, interfacing with an app. Or all you see digital signage at a lot of bus stations and train stations telling you how many minutes it's out. All these are forms of IoT. Hospitality, simply put, hotel and motels. Panic buttons for housekeepers, lone workers, anyone that's working by themselves, whether they have a medical emergency, or in the cases of housekeeping for motels and hotels, they could be assaulted. Some unruly tenant or a client is assaulting them. They need help. So the panic buttons are really falling I can't get up buttons, but on steroids. I mean, they actually, even if you don't say a word, it can pinpoint exactly what room they are in this 20, 30 story building, maybe a large resort campus where there's multiple buildings. And the safety of that lone worker is very important. In fact, in some markets, it's even becoming regulated and mandated. Automation in the rooms, we're seeing that you start to check in now. Obviously, with your mobile app, you can get into your room. You can control the TV from your smartphone, even turn off the lights or open the curtains. Uh, we're seeing this, especially in your more 4 or 5 star hotels. Uh, all these places have a restaurant in most cases, so refrigeration monitoring is just as important there. So moving on to industrial, and again, we have a very wide range of the audience today. I know not everyone may be working in these different ones, but if anything, I'm hoping it's painting a picture of why IoT is useful in all types of businesses. So we've already talked about preventive maintenance, water and electricity monitoring. Industrial manufacturers use a lot of electricity and often cases water, and they also have a lot of wastewater. How are they tracking that? How are they monitoring that? I mean, there's sensors that can actually tell you the percentage of water in a liquid versus chemical, and that's something they have to monitor. Cargo and asset tracking, same story. The pallets I just told you about, and then oil and gas monitoring. That's a big one as well. Whether it be literally the oil and gas industry, tank monitoring, level monitoring, pressure monitoring in tanks, even the purity of the fuel in the tanks, there's sensors for that. So to kind of wrap up this use case section, as I said, this is a very high level kind of overview of what's out there. Panic buttons are hot. Preventive maintenance, we're seeing a lot of that for obvious reasons. These three are really saving people money or saving lives in some cases. And then the up and coming, I love the AI video. It's listed last year, but that's probably my favorite one here lately. Is taking existing cameras systems already up there. Don't need new cameras in most cases, as long as they're digital. And you can take that video feed and run it through a computer, a server, if you will. Now you can search the content. You're looking for a white BMW. It'll find every image of a white BMW, give the timestamp and whatnot. And if you're looking for a person, you can actually upload a photo of a person and say, hey, I'm looking for this person. Does this person come across any of the video footage or walk through any of the camera shots? Find that. I mean, it's you can set geo fences up where you don't want anyone to walk near the certain door because it's the door to the warehouse, maybe. And if they do, you want to be alerted right away. So instead of having someone sitting there watching the video screens, you can have the system watch it for you and alert you for whatever you tell it to alert you on, which is pretty cool. Connected communities, seeing an uptick there. That same AI video is being used in connected communities, largely for Department of Transportation, law enforcement. Think about intersections, busy intersections with license plate recognition, or maybe even facial recognition there, or accidents, or even pedestrian near strikes. All these things are important to a community. Then it goes even further. Light monitoring for parks and roadways in the middle of the night. There's no one there. You can either dim the lights if they're LED. A lot of cities are upgrading their traditional old bulbs to LED bulbs because they're just more efficient and you can control them better. And then the smart buildings, whether it be residential or commercial, especially in the commercial space. A lot of commercial real estate organizations are seeing companies downsize. They don't need as much room anymore because they're in this hybrid work environment. Well, they want to either A, be more efficient and save money for their own benefits, or B, be attractive to tenants. Say, hey, we have a smart building here. We provide you with all these different sensors and features that help you save money as well, and give you some benefits, from a security perspective, again, or just saving money. To wrap it up, that's Internet of Things, IoT, yes, formerly known as machine to machine, and some people still call it that, but it's taking technology and helping a business or an organization become more efficient and effective. And there's a lot of ways that can be done. I just want to reiterate something I said earlier. Don't go at this alone. It's going to take you a lot longer and probably cost you a lot more money. It's just much more efficient and effective to talk to someone that's what they do for a living. There's a lot of organizations out there that can help you with this. And if you need some advice or tips on that, you can join me later in one of the talk chat rooms or reach out to me directly and I'll be glad to help. Thanks for checking out this session and have a great remainder of your day.